Welcome to Consider This with Big Joe Clark. Joe is a certified financial planner with more than 28 years of experience in the financial services industry. He serves as the managing partner of the Financial Enhancement Group, LLC, and also taught financial planning at Purdue University for 7 years. The Financial Enhancement Group is an SEC-registered investment advisory firm based in Indiana with more than $200 million in assets, serving clients in more than 20 states. Indiana offices are located in Anderson, Fishers, Lafayette, and Rensselaer, as well as Sonoma County, California. This show is for educational purposes, and you're strongly encouraged to consult your advisor regarding your individual issues and opportunities. Joe can be reached at 800-928-4001. You can find more information about Joe and the Financial Enhancement Group at yourlifeafterwork.com. Enjoy the show, and remember to consider this.
Well, good morning and welcome to Consider This. I'm Joe Clark.
I'm Sherry Cantos.
Happy Mother's Day, Sherry. Weekend.
Thank you. Thank you.
I don't know if you're listening to us on a Thursday night on WILO from 4 to 5. If you're listening on Saturday morning on WIBC from 6 to 7 a.m. or 987 The Song from 8 to 9 a.m. I don't know if you're listening on Shine 99 from 10 to 11 a.m. on Sunday morning. Or even on iTunes or WHBU Monday nights from 5 to 6. I don't know. But either way, I appreciate you being here, and I hope you had a great Mother's Day weekend coming up.
Yeah.
My mama's flying up from Florida, so
Aw.
we'll get to see her, and she'll get to spend some time with my family and my brother's family. So life is good. It is one of those special times when you can get everybody together. I like the hats that show up at church.
Yeah, I do too.
We go to a non-denominational church now where people wear shorts and jeans and not so much of the fancy stuff. Kind of miss the fancy stuff on a few days of the year.
Yep.
It's nice to be able to wear the golf clothes, and go to church and go from there to the course.
Or the Colts jersey.
Or the Colts jersey, or the ex-Patriots jersey. That's the one.
Yeah,
it's it's probably bad to go with hate, malice, and spite. No. That would all be bad. Hey, lots of great stuff on the show today. We're going to talk about 401ks, both as an employer and an employee. In a perfect world, if you could wave a wand as an employer and design your own plan, what would you do?
Yeah.
And it was interesting. I got asked that question and said, hey, if we started over, if we had nothing, what would you do with the plan and build it? And, the Financial Enhancement Group, we have our own 401k plan. That's one of the questions I would always ask as a person talking. One, do you have a 401k before you sell me one?
Right.
And two, is your money in the identical plan? And
Right.
and the answer for us is yes. It's yours matches ours identically. Now the plan document, that's different based on the employer. Some of the plans that we set up, people have loans availability. I don't have loan availability in mine, but you've got that. We're going to talk about a little bit some of the craziness that's going on in the market right now in terms of the large cap and small cap variance, what we would call a market divergence that we think people need to be aware of. And we're gonna cover that. Sherry, of course, is going to have her segment where we're going to talk a little bit about college education, and we're going to cover the LeaderCast, the some of the vision and financial visions that came out of a meeting that I was at with 7 of the team of the Financial Enhancement Group last Friday. It was with Andy Stanley and Tyler Perry, and you may wonder how those two names go together. It was really, really a good meeting over
Sounds
purpose.
cool.
So you're listening to Consider This. I'm Joe Clark, along with Sherry Cantos. We got to take a break. We'll get right into the show. You got a question or comment, shoot me an email. Consider this at yourlifeafterwork.com. We'll be right back.
Welcome to Consider This with Big Joe Clark. Joe is a certified financial planner with more than 28 years of experience in the financial services industry. He serves as the managing partner of the Financial Enhancement Group, LLC, and also taught financial planning at Purdue University for 7 years. The Financial Enhancement Group is an SEC-registered investment advisory firm based in Indiana with more than $200 million in assets, serving clients in more than 20 states. Indiana offices are located in Anderson, Fishers, Lafayette, and Rensselaer, as well as Sonoma County, California. The show is for educational purposes, and you're strongly encouraged to consult your advisor regarding your individual issues and opportunities. Joe can be reached at 800-928-4001. You can find more information about Joe and the Financial Enhancement Group at yourlifeafterwork.com. Enjoy the show, and remember to consider this.
Well, good morning and welcome to Consider This. I'm Joe Clark.
I'm Sherry Cantos.
So happy to have you along. Hey, I got to ask an interesting question, Sherry, over the weekend, and it was about a person who is the employer and the employee, right?
He was both.
He's got people who work for them.
Okay.
But he also has his 401k, regular listener of the show, and he said, Joe, in a perfect world, if I could wave a wand and start all over, how should my 401k look? And I thought it was an interesting question. So we're going to do two parts to this. The first part is, if I were an employer, what would I want in my 401k? How do I want to construct it?
Right.
And then secondly, if you're an employee, what do you want to look for inside of that 401k?
Right.
So I happen to have the Financial Enhancement Group. We've got 22 people on the team, and we all have a 401k, and we all contribute to the 401k. And I know that because I put money in for them, whether they do or not. Right. So in some cases, there's a match with some places. And in our situation, we actually put the money in, and then whatever else they put in, it just goes to it. Right. So here's the 401k story as it is. It all starts with a plan document. Now, Sherry, if you think about a plan document, think about a big circle. And that circle is controlled by the outside of the balloon. Right?
Okay, yeah.
So who puts the air in the balloon? Well, that's the Department of Labor, and that's an act from 1974 called ERISA, and they give you the rules, if you will.
All the options. I prefer to think of
a menu, if you will.
Okay.
So inside of that balloon, when I go to see an employer, I sit down with them and I help them figure out what menu options they should select. You can never make the balloon bigger than it is. It pops and you go to jail.
Right. That's the rule part.
You can let air out, however. Okay. And one of the biggest ones, probably as an example, is loans. Right?
Yeah.
The Department of Labor says you can borrow money from your 401k, but many plan documents, including the one at the Financial Enhancement Group, says no.
Yeah.
It's not a put and take account.
Kind of defeats the purpose.
It's not a put and take account. The money is yours, but you're going to use it for retirement.
Right.
The one that saddens me is that the Roth option is available inside of a 401k, but and only it's less than 25% of the plans in the country today actually use the Roth 401k.
I don't get that. What would be the reasoning?
I can't explain that other than most people don't understand that much about taxes and that much about the options. Many times people will say, Joe, I make too much money, I don't qualify for a Roth. And that may be the case for a Roth IRA.
Yeah.
There is no income restriction on a Roth 401k, right? So in a perfect world, right, you want to make sure that the options are right. So when we go in to help somebody set up a 401k, here are the decisions that you can make. They're as simple as yes or no. And then we create a plan document for you. So we want to make sure that the plan document matches from the employer standpoint is what you want. You're trying to create something that creates employee longevity. You want people to stick around, right? You want to make them feel comfortable in the decision that they're making, that their future is somewhat secure, at least financially, and so that they have a mechanism to be able to save and accumulate. So there have been in the past, there are three decisions that are big in my mind that as the employer you darn well better pay attention to. One always got you landed in jail, right? In the funny orange outfit if you didn't pay attention.
Right.
And that was making sure that you had the right number, a minimum number of options that were diversified in the plan. 404C says you have to have at least 4. Most 401k plans have more. I will tell you that the numbers show the more options you have, the worse your average participant does, because they'll study 10, they won't study 40.
Right. Yeah.
Different choices. So that's stage one. And so you have, as the plan administrator, you have a cost that is and a liability that's involved making sure that the right choices are there. And for years, the answer was to look at your local broker, to look at the insurance agent and let them set up a plan. Very few people ask, is your money in the same plan? That's one of the questions I would ask if I was starting over.
Yeah.
So that was the first one. I will tell you that most plans use mutual funds.
Yes.
If you've heard the show for long, I don't believe anybody with more than $50,000 belongs in mutual funds.
Yeah.
We use exchange-traded funds. They're much cheaper. They're more transparent. And you can easily put that in a 401k. I've got 22 people on our team.
Mm-hmm.
I can afford to use exchange-traded funds.
Right.
Don't take the argument that your company can't or believe that it can't.
But they don't, if it's not set up that way, they won't, right?
No, that's the investment choices. Now,
okay.
So you build the plan that way, right? You've got the plan document.
Sure. We're
now,
talking about the employer now.
The employee document. Now the employer is picking out that list
right.
of here's the investment choices. They hire, in many cases, a fiduciary like us at the Financial Enhancement Group to sign off on their list.
Right, yeah.
Which most of the time we won't.
Yeah,
right?
because
the
it's
choices aren't, and the expense rate's too high.
Sure,
right?
yeah.
Now, because of the Department of Labor rule, though, coming out, hopefully in June, now we have a situation where the brokers are sending you letters, or the insurance companies are sending you letters saying, hey, we may not be able to do this anymore. And the reason they're saying that is because you now have another liability as a firm administrator, and that's to make sure that the fees and expenses are contained. And you may go, but we already do that. No, maybe you did that, but the choices, the investment choices that you have inside of it have not necessarily done that. Now, when Elizabeth Warren found that out, she went nuts. She couldn't believe it. But the reality is this is where we are.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to take you into the future because I will promise you the next level of liability is going to be the tax consideration, both on people not understanding how money comes out of their plan,
right?
And what that means, and secondly, whether or not you have the Roth option and it's being taught correctly. It's not there yet. You're not liable for that yet, but you will be. So why not build this for your employees' best opportunity, right? Their best choices, your best way to be able to keep them going on. Now, the next thing then gets into the service side, right? How is your plan taken care of? When your people come in to do the education every year, and I know that's a joke because most people don't. Right. But when we come in to do the education, in a perfect world, the Financial Enhancement Group has built your plan. We've helped you with the plan document.
Yeah.
We've put in the investment choices. Now we're going to do two things. The first one is education. We're going to come in a group fashion. One of our planners will teach your group, here's how your 401k works. Here are the menu options, just so you know the availability, cover that plan document, what's going on, talk about the stuff that is existing in the economy and taking place. But the most important part in my mind is we're going to provide the application. So we're not going to hand them a 401k packet and say, you're on your own, go pray with your spouse, y'all figure it out and tell us what you want to have happen.
Let us know.
That's the education. What we want to do is provide the application. And many times people do bring in their spouses. And so one of our planners sits down with you one-on-one with your employees, one-on-one from all the way from the kitchen worker to the maintenance people to the C-suite. Doesn't matter. Each person gets a one-on-one meeting with their tax return, their other investment options, so their other investment vehicles, if you will, the spouse's 401k or whatever, to make sure that everything is working in tandem. Now, as an employer, you can sign off that the plan document is updated, that the investment choices are passed by a fiduciary. They're the same ones that are in my 401k, right? You've been able to say, yes, we've taken care of the tax issues because, one, we've provided the Roth option, and two, we've used application and education so that our employees understand how this is working and we're in good order. And yes, if you've already got a 401k plan, this is still a viable conversation. There are a few places where we go in and we do the teaching, even though we aren't the custodians of the plan. And I think they will eventually change. I think that's the right idea.
Yeah.
But just for you to be able to have that sense of peace, if you will, in the education, we are more than happy to provide it. Hey, you're listening to Consider This. I'm Joe Clark, along with Sherry Contos. You got a question or comment, shoot us an email. Consider this at yourlifeafterwork.com. We'll take a break and be right back, and we'll talk about what to think about if you're an employee.
Welcome to Consider This with Big Joe Clark. Joe is a certified financial planner with more than 28 years of experience in the financial services industry. He serves as the managing partner of the Financial Enhancement Group, LLC. The Financial Enhancement Group is an SEC-registered investment advisory firm based in Indiana with more than $200 million in assets, serving clients in more than 20 states. Indiana offices are located in Anderson, Fishers, Lafayette, and Rensselaer, as well as Sonoma County, California. This show is for educational purposes, and you're strongly encouraged to consult your advisor regarding your individual issues and opportunities. Joe can be reached at 800-928-4001. You can find more information about Joe and the Financial Enhancement Group at yourlifeafterwork.com. Enjoy the show, and remember to consider this.
Well, good morning and welcome back to Consider This. I'm Joe Clark.
I'm Sherry Contos.
So happy to have you along.
We are.
Hey, here's the deal, folks. When years and years and years ago, people had things called defined benefit plans.
Mm-hmm.
So if you had a retirement, and from an employer, it looked a lot like Social Security. You got to a certain age, based on the amount of money that you made, you got a paycheck for the rest of your life. And those were called defined benefit plans. We moved rapidly into a world of defined contribution. Defined contribution is where your employer is going to give you some stuff.
Right.
And it usually comes in the form of a match. At the Financial Enhancement Group, we put money in for people.
Right.
Some places
nice.
match dollar for dollar based on you contributing, you participating. Some are 50 cents on the dollar,
Sure.
Up to a certain level. But that's what defined contribution means.
Mm-hmm.
And, I got to ask the question from an employer who was also an employee. So think me. I wasn't the one that asked me the question. I hadn't thought about it, honestly. But, I'm the managing partner at the Financial Enhancement Group, one of the partners and owners. So I'm the employer. I'm also one of the 22 people on the team and the employee. Right. And so the question is, as an employee, what should I be looking at inside of my 401k? And if you missed the first segment, what to be looking for as you're an employer, you can go back to our website at yourlifeafterwork.com and grab it. You can always download the show from iTunes. Consider This with Big Joe Clark. But feel free to shoot me an email, ask a question. We can help you find what it is you're looking for. But everything with your plan is going to start with your plan document. And what you're essentially asking your employer is, are these things available?
Within the document.
Within the document.
Right.
On the menu options. So,
right.
Where they selected. Because just because the Department of Labor says you can do things
doesn't
in a 401k
mean it's in yours.
doesn't mean it's in your plan.
Right.
So we're going to ask you some questions. Now, keep in mind, if you've got more than $100,000 inside of a 401k plan, we manage it for you if you want us to. It's one of the services that we provide to make sure that all of the money functions congruently so that what you have in other places matches with what you have inside of a 401k.
So what you mean when you say that is you help them select the right options within that plan
Yeah,
document.
people at Lilly, Caterpillar,
Sure,
Alcoa.
okay. Just make the right choices within the
Yeah.
within the okay.
Well, and that it's working in sync with everything else that you have.
Because it makes
We
sense.
have people who only have a 403b at Purdue.
Right.
And so we manage the 403b at Purdue for them. And then when they retire, obviously things will change. But there's questions that we're going to ask. The big one is there a Roth option available?
Sure.
And we need to know that to help make sure that your plan is in sync. And again, silo investing, one of those things that people do is they look at their 401k and their spouse looks at their 401k. I want to look at it collectively
Right.
to make sure that we're getting the best options. Maybe you don't have a Roth, but your spouse does. So we put in as much money in your plan as we can. If the Roth is right for you, we put in as much money as we can to get the free money, the match, and then maybe we put more money in your spouse's plan because they've got the Roth option, and we've got a better chance at being able to get to where we're going.
Right.
We're going to ask if there's in-service non-hardship distribution. And what that means is you're still working in service, right?
Right.
Non-hardship, it's not because of anything bad. Distribution that lets you roll money to an IRA.
So is that kind of at will?
Yeah, well, it usually happens at age.
Okay.
And you have to tell them to do it, but you have to have a good reason.
Sure.
Right?
Okay.
And my good reason is I love doing Roth conversions.
Right.
Roth conversions, or I take IRA money and I convert it to a Roth. Now, you can do that inside of a 401k, again, if your plan document allows.
Right.
The problem is you can never do a recharacterization. So if I had $100,000 of traditional tax-deferred money in my 401k, and I wanted to convert it to a Roth, right? I would owe taxes on the $100,000.
Like right now.
And the market falls 30%. I only have $70,000 left, but I still have to pay taxes on 100.
On 100.
And when I do it inside of an IRA, I have the ability to say, wait a minute, changed my mind, right?
Yeah.
And I can do a recharacterization, go backwards, and Then I don't have to pay the taxes on the 100,000. Wait, and I can do the reconversion of the 70,000.
When it goes-
Then I pay taxes on less money, and I still wind up with the same thing. So
Okay, wow.
you have to know the tax rules and the flexibility rules, but that's the in-service non-hardship distribution. So there's 4 things that we help people look at with their 401k, that if you're going to do this on your own, these are the 4 you need to pay attention to. If we're going to help you, or another legal fiduciary is going to help you, I'm legally obligated to treat your money as if it were my money and we were in the same situation. So that's why I like our 401k. As an employer, by the way, that it meets all the fiduciary standards. We are fiduciaries, and you don't have a plan that's different than my money. We pick the lineup, right? So we know the fees and expenses. We boot them out when we can find one that's cheaper. Nobody wants to pay more fees, right? So the first thing is we help you as the employee understand your menu options, the things that matter to you, and make sure that we're using those correctly, that plan document. Secondly, we're going to look at the investment options that are inside of that plan, as well as everything else that you have. And maybe you only have your 401k. It's possible, right?
Yeah.
Or maybe you're married and your spouse has a 401k, and maybe you have a brokerage account, and maybe you have IRAs. We want to look across the board to make sure that we're not in a single silo looking at a single situation. We want to make those work collectively in line with your financial vision. Remember, we talk about that journey that you're on. You're not putting money in your 401k for tomorrow. You're putting in your 401k for your future. Even if you're retiring tomorrow, it's not for tomorrow. It's for the next 30 years if you're 60 years old, right? So we've got to think about this long term. So we've looked at the investment lineup, and we've helped you make the right investment choices and decisions based on your age, your tolerance toward risk, and the options that are in that plan. As the employee, you can't control the investment options, right?
Right.
But what we can do is help you make the most of what it is that you've got.
Yeah.
So the third thing that we're going to look at then when we talk about this is your actual tax return, to help you decide what the right amount of money is that you need to be saving, whether Roth or not Roth, right? Whether you should be putting more money in the 401k or whether you should be putting money into a Roth IRA. I will tell you, you always want the free money, Sherry.
Sure.
Right? So anything up to the match, first money goes to the 401k.
Sure.
Then the rest of the choices come into play.
Mm-hmm.
Do I qualify for a Roth IRA? Do I qualify for a traditional IRA? What are my choices inside of my 401k or 403b, and what are my spouse's choices?
Right.
I want to make sure that next dollar goes to the best place for you, for your situation. As a fiduciary, you've got to be able to go through that part and get it done. And then last but not least is get it done, right? It's application.
Yeah.
So
Makes sense.
when you listen to this show, I am doing my best to provide you things that you need to consider.
Mm-hmm.
Professionally, we take care of people who don't want to worry about their money.
Yes.
Right? If you want to worry about your money, then you've got to get it done. You've got to go through the stage of application. And Andy Stanley has taught me a lot, because he's very, very bright and wise, but he brings in other people that are bright and wise that are successful.
Right.
And one of the formulas that he taught me this last year was Q multiplied by A equals E. Q is the quality of the idea.
Times.
So I gave you some good things to think about in
Right.
your 401k. Sherry's here to make sure that I do it in English, and hopefully it came across that way.
Yeah.
But A is acceptance. And if you don't either understand what I said, or if you don't take it and apply it, then we got nothing out of it. The
Right.
excellence, the E, is nothing if the Q and the A are not both done. If you want us to do it, we're more than happy to help. We take care of people who don't want to worry about their money. If you're going to do it on your own, I try to give you enough education on this show so that you've got a shot at it. But please understand, if you don't apply it, if you just listen and thought that was a good idea and I'll get around to it, well, most people don't get around to it. Hey, you're listening to Consider This. I'm Joe Clark, along with Sherry Contos. We got to take a break. I hope you're having an outstanding weekend. Shoot me an email. Consider this at yourlifeafterwork.com.
Welcome to Consider This with Big Joe Clark. Joe is a certified financial planner with more than 28 years of experience in the financial services industry. He serves as the managing partner of the Financial Enhancement Group, LLC. The Financial Enhancement Group is an SEC-registered investment advisory firm based in Indiana with more than $200 million in assets, serving clients in more than 20 states. Indiana offices are located in Anderson, Fishers, Lafayette, and Rensselaer, as well as Sonoma County, California. This show is for educational purposes, and you're strongly encouraged to consult your advisor regarding your individual issues and opportunities. Joe can be reached at 800-928-4001. You can find more information about Joe and the Financial Enhancement Group at yourlifeafterwork.com. Enjoy the show, and remember to consider this.
Well, good morning and welcome back to Consider This. I'm Joe Clark.
I'm Sherry Contos.
Happy to have you along. Hey, Sherry, last week, I should say, on Friday, we actually had the LeaderCast program that took place. This was LeaderCast 17. That's for the year, not the number of what they've done. Well, so I'm not sure where this originated, in all fairness.
Okay.
There is a huge church in Chicago named Willow Creek.
Sure.
And Willow Creek kind of spun off these churches that are all over the country.
Lots of them.
that are non-denominational. You'll hear me mention the name Andy Stanley from time to time. Andy's the pastor at North Point and a phenomenal speaker.
Mm-hmm.
And he's got 400 people on his team in the church that he takes care of. And the bottom line is a lot of the things that we do from a leadership standpoint it's the same whether you do it for a church or whether you do it in business if you're doing it with the right culture and the right intent, right?
Yep.
And so what Andy essentially started doing was creating leadership podcasts, and you can find it on iTunes, just like you can find Consider This with Big Joe Clark. You can find Andy Stanley Leadership Podcast. I'm telling you, it's some of the best half an hour once a month that you can get in terms of learning. Well, so because we do things with Andy's church, what he calls Catalyst, which, we go in there and there's great speakers that have been there.
Right.
LeaderCast found me because Andy was one of the speakers.
Right.
So was Tyler Perry. So was Susie Welch.
So you were in good company.
So there were these tremendous speakers all surrounding a thing about purpose. It's finding your purpose. Now,
right.
The talk obviously wasn't aimed in the financial world. It was aimed in finding your purpose, your value, what it is that drives you so that you get motivated every day to go to work. As I drove into the office on Monday, I will tell you, I am fortunate. I love what I do. I am very, very passionate about helping people better understand their money. And to me, it's not work. There are things that, there are days when I'd rather be golfing, but not golfing every day. Right. I love what I do. And so finding purpose matters to me. What happens a lot of the time, though, when I sit down with people to talk about their financial stuff is that their financial order doesn't have a lot of congruence, a lot of connectivity. It's almost like it's without purpose. And I thought Susie Welch, it's Jack Welch's wife, and you all know about the craziness that went on in their lives a few years ago. But she wrote a book, and the book was essentially 10, 10, and 10. And it's got some strengths to it, I think, to help people understand their money better in terms of what's going on. That wasn't what she wrote it about, but it was a decision-making metric.
Okay.
And what she essentially said is spend 10 minutes on talking about a decision you're going to make and how it's going to impact you for the next essentially 10 minutes, right? And so in the here and the now, there's some value to that.
Yeah.
How is it going to impact you 10 months from now?
Okay.
Right? So it gives you a little bit longer thing. And how is it going to impact you 10 years from now? And I think that is important. There's that
good.
The old expression that says, if you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there, right?
Well, and sometimes you do things just in the immediate to either, relieve pain or cause pain or get through something or just be off your plate without thinking long term.
Yeah. And so you want to think through those three different areas. Now, how do we do that at the Financial Enhancement Group? Well, the answer is we help people create a financial vision. Right? We don't know where we're going to be in 10 years. I know I'll be 60. God willing, I'm still here.
Yeah.
Right? Assuming everything, goes as planned, there's some things you know about 10 years, but you really don't know about your health, your employer, the economy. Yeah, there's a lot of things you don't know. So
Right.
I don't put a lot of quantitative, numerical value to where things are going to be in 10 years. What I want to put is a qualitative statement that says, here's who Joe and Barb Clark are going to be 10 years from now.
Right.
This is our financial vision. And that's what we try to help you accomplish when you come in a couple sentences. What's your primary directive? Where is it that you want to go? What is your purpose for the finances? Are you trying to accumulate a lot? Are you trying to be able to give a lot away? I worked with a lady last week. She wants to make $1 million contribution to a university in Kentucky that doesn't charge tuition. And I just think it's phenomenal that she wants to do that.
Right.
There's a problem, Sherry. You can only give away half your AGI every year. Right. So I've got to help her make enough money to be able to use the deduction. Otherwise, she ends up losing it over a period of time. So it's kind of a reverse thought, right?
Right.
But we know her purpose.
Right.
So,
yeah.
So we take that purpose then, and then we take it to the 10-minute side where we begin to apply it to what we call those 5 critical elements. And the 5 critical elements, real simply, your life after work. That's what we think it's all about, because most people just don't watch grass grow, right?
Right.
The nature of retirement has changed for most of us. We have more and more. I don't mean we as in Financial Enhancement Group clients, but we as a country have more and more retirees going back to part-time work. One, you're living longer. All right. 2, 65 is 65, but brains are better. The body is better,
Yep.
and people are trying to be productive in different ways. And that's a good thing, right? That's a good thing. So your life after work's the first one. So 10 minutes from now, what do we think about that? 10 months from now, how do we want it to look? So that's when we're talking about, what the allocation needs to be, the percentage that you're saving, whether or not you're using the Roth this year,
Right.
if you have opportunities for it. The second thing then is the tax planning. What do we need to do in this month to be able to impact this year's tax return in the most promising light, in the best way that we possibly can? Third then is the investment playbook. In light of what's going on in the economy, the GDP, the valuation of the stock market, where we are in this journey of life that we're on, what does your allocation need to look like today? Because it's probably different than what it was 10 years ago, and it's probably different than what you're going to need in 10 years, right?
Right.
Fourth then is, what are the surprise things that are coming or known in your life? The good, the bad, and the ugly. A child getting married, putting somebody into college, taking care of an elder parent. Right? It's the things that are possible that are coming on your radar, that we need to be prepared for. And then the last but not least is the legacy plan. Hopefully that's a lot longer than 10 years from now. But when God calls me home, what do I want my estate? What do I want my legacy, what I've left behind for my children and hopefully grandchildren? What do I want it to look like for them? What do I want them to take away?
Right.
And really, it's, that when we talk about purpose that came out of LeaderCast, it's, when you're done, they said, what do you want people to stand up in droves to thank you for? Right? What did you do that really, really mattered and made a difference in the lives of other people? If you think about it, you can take that same concept to your financial life, right? When I'm done, when it's time for my life after work, right?
Right.
When I'm done, what do I want to be most thankful for? And the answer, obviously, is being able to replace my standard of living. Now, folks, I have no desire to stop doing what I do. I mean, someday it'll happen. The mental faculty won't be there, and it'll be somebody else's turn. But in the meantime, I want to make sure that I'm getting as much out of me as I can. And I know that the biggest thing that we can do for most families is actually protecting that tax return. Yes, I get paid to manage money, but markets go up and down.
Right.
You send a check to the IRS, it just doesn't come back. Let's work on your financial vision. Hey, you're listening to Consider This. I'm Joe Clark. Sherry and I have got to take a break, but we'll be right back. Shoot me an email, considerthis@yourlifeafterwork.com.
Welcome to Consider This with Big Joe Clark. Joe is a certified financial planner with more than 28 years of experience in the financial services industry. He serves as the managing partner of the Financial Enhancement Group, LLC. The Financial Enhancement Group is an SEC-registered investment advisory firm based in Indiana with more than $200 million in assets, serving clients in more than 20 states. Indiana offices are located in Anderson, Fishers, Lafayette, and Rensselaer, as well as Sonoma County, California. This show is for educational purposes, and you're strongly encouraged to consult your advisor regarding your individual issues and opportunities. Joe can be reached at 800-928-4001. You can find more information about Joe and the Financial Enhancement Group at yourlifeafterwork.com. Enjoy the show, and remember to consider this.
Well, good morning and welcome back to Consider This. I'm Joe Clark.
I'm Sherry Contos.
And we are plumb tickled
We are.
to have you along. You know, Sherry, one of the common questions I get, we manage money. I mean, that's what we do. We're registered investment advisors. I don't pick up the phone and call and say, "Hey, Sherry, what do you think about Starbucks earnings?" I don't. What do you think about the new iPhone maybe coming out?
It wouldn't help you if you did. So.
But some people like to have those kind of conversations, right? So. At the Financial Enhancement Group, we have an internal allocation team. I take care of the macroeconomics. Adam Harder is our CFA, our Chief Investment Strategist. He's the one who does the fundamental analysis. When you hear about an analyst, that's what an Adam is. And then we have a chartered market technician, Andrew Thrasher, actually the youngest winner in history of the Charles Dowell Award, which we're very, very, very proud of.
Yeah, that's so cool.
It's very cool.
Yeah.
And anyhow, so the three of us make up the allocation team. Now, we take care of more than 600 families in 25 states.
Right.
So it's we're based in central Indiana,
but you're pretty broad.
Yeah, it's broad. So every week we have our allocation meeting. We invite our families to come to the meeting.
Yeah.
We've probably had 25 people who actually wanted to come over the 20 years. This is our 20th year in business. Nobody's ever come more than twice. You just really don't want to know how the sausage is made.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But on top of that, every week I put together a video. Now, you listeners can get an abbreviated version if you want it. It's free. You just go to the website at yourlifeafterwork.com and sign up for the Market Carver. It's going to be a 3 to 4 minute taste of what we see in the economy or the markets every week.
Comes right to your email box.
Email box on Thursday morning. For the families we serve, it's a 7 to 9 minute video. And it's more detailed in terms of what's going on. We like to communicate what's happening inside of the world.
Sure.
Of the 650 plus families, we have about 80 that open it up every week.
Okay.
So most people don't. We take care of people who don't want to worry about their money. It's not a job. You don't have to watch the Market Carver.
They don't want to know.
But the bottom line is most people are looking for somebody to take care of it.
Right.
And make sure that money's being handled correctly. And that's what we really do. Well, every now and then, and you don't hear me talk about the market a lot on this show. I talk more about the stuff that we don't get paid to do. We just think it's very important, right?
Right.
We're registered investment advisors. So of the 5 critical elements, right? The Your Life After Work part, which is making sure your standard of living is replaced at retirement, the tax planning, the life happens stuff, the legacy plan when I work with your estate planning attorney, none of that we get paid for. We get paid for the investment playbook and the results that come with it.
Right? Exactly.
And we still spend very little time on this show talking about the market. I want to give you other things that you need to consider.
Yep.
I am going to tell you something right now that I think is important for you to understand, important enough that we're going to use a segment of this show to be able to discuss. And here's where we reside, May of 2017. I've got to give you a date on this one so you understand where we are. You're all familiar with the S&P 500, and the S&P 500 is approximately 500 companies that is put together in an indices that they say is unmanaged, meaning there's nobody trying to make changes because of market valuation, which is true, though Dr. Blitzer does make changes inside of who the components are.
Yeah.
There 30% of the S&P 500 in 2000 is no longer in the S&P 500 today, right? So the changes are more rapid than people understand. But nonetheless, it's an equal weighted index, or it's a market cap weighted index. And that's where I think people have to understand that capital weighting business. The one share of a company's stock times the number of outstanding shares will tell you what the market capitalization of a company is. Okay?
Right.
Cap weighted means the bigger your market cap, bigger your market capitalization, the more impact you have in the S&P 500.
Right.
Right? So when you look at Microsoft, which is one of the 10 largest companies in the indices in the world, they've got about 10 billion shares of stock outstanding. You look at Harley Davidson, not one of the biggest companies in the world. They have about 300 million shares. So it's not the stock price, it's the stock price times
the number of
shares that are out there. Now, why does that matter? Well, the 10 largest companies in the S&P 500 now represent more than 20% of the value of the S&P 500. And that happens a lot. This is not new. It's just that it's massively growing. So as money managers, one of the things that we pay very, very close attention to is how is the S&P 500 doing? You know, it's the measuring stick that a lot of people put our equity holdings against. But the second part of that, the second thing that we do is compare it to the equal weight. Now we're going to make Microsoft and Harley Davidson equal. They each get one vote.
Yeah.
And I want to know how the equal weighted S&P 500 is doing. And if you're a computer guy, go ahead.
Is that like assessing the health of those 500 companies?
What's the market's health of those 500 companies,
Right.
not the individual companies' balance sheets or
No,
fundamentals.
but yeah.
So what we know in a healthy market, you're going to see the S&P 500 and you're going to see the equal weighted S&P 500 move pretty much in tandem.
Really?
They're gonna look a lot alike.
So that would tell us what? That all 500 of those
that
companies
the market
are
is
equally healthy.
It's what you would hear us call about breadth. When you hear us say that breadth is good, it means everybody's really participating in the game.
Yeah. Okay.
Right?
So it's not just those weighted
It's
ones.
not just the weighted ones. It's all of them.
Okay.
Now, every now and then, you're going to find the divergence.
Okay.
And so best way to think about that is an alligator mouth, right? And either the equal weighted is going up and the S&P 500 is going down, which every now and then happens. But where we are right now, where we were in 2007, where we were in 1998, which means it didn't happen. Nothing happened until March of 2000 that was bad. We've got an alligator mouth. The S&P 500, those large market cap weighted ones, the Facebooks, the Amazons, the Alphabets, which used to be Google, the Netflix, these large Microsoft market cap things are going higher and higher and higher. And because they make up such a large weighting, they are propelling the entire S&P 500 higher.
Right.
On the other hand, when we look at the equal weighted, they're actually going down.
That's
and
interesting.
So there's an alligator's mouth, a divergence between the capital weighted and the equal weighted.
And that's bad because?
It's bad because you want a healthy market. You want everybody participating.
Right.
So stock prices aren't going up based on an improving economy and improving business outlook. They're going up because interest rates are very, very low and money managers have to put money somewhere and they trust Bezos at Amazon more than they trust the guy at the little company down the street.
I see.
So now you've got this alligator mouth. And the mouth, if you believe in reversion or regression to the mean, the mouth at some point has to shut. I'm not a big believer in reversion in all things, but in this one, this mouth does have to shut. Now that happens in one of two ways. Either money managers get tired of putting money into Apple and Amazon and the large caps start to come down, right? Which means that the mouth shuts and the market's down and nobody's happy. Or we have something that propels those smaller companies, probably a tax impact, a change in the tax code that would dramatically affect, in fact, small businesses more than the big ones. You could see that, or a regulation change. In either case, that would drive those smaller companies higher, and you would see the equal weight rise. The mouth would snap, but it would snap on a positive note of smaller companies doing better. Key thing is, folks, right now, you need to be aware of what's going on, understand how your money is working and why. For those of you listening on WIBC, that's the end of the show today. Remember, you can always get the next segment and other shows on our website at yourlifeafterwork.com, as well as on iTunes. Consider This with Big Joe Clark. You got a question or comment, shoot me an email. Consider This at yourlifeafterwork.com. Sherry and I will take a final break for the rest of you, and then we'll be back with one more segment.
Welcome to Consider This with Big Joe Clark. Joe is a certified financial planner with more than 28 years of experience in the financial services industry. He serves as the managing partner of the Financial Enhancement Group, LLC. The Financial Enhancement Group is an SEC-registered investment advisory firm based in Indiana with more than $200 million in assets, serving clients in more than 20 states. Indiana offices are located in Anderson, Fishers, Lafayette, and Rensselaer, as well as Sonoma County, California. This show is for educational purposes, and you're strongly encouraged to consult your advisor regarding your individual issues and opportunities. Joe can be reached at 800-928-4001. You can find more information about Joe and the Financial Enhancement Group at yourlifeafterwork.com. Enjoy the show, and remember to consider this.
Well, good morning and welcome back to Consider This. I'm Joe Clark.
I'm Sherry Cantos.
Happy to have you along.
We are.
And hey, folks, it's it's a fun time. This is where Sherry gets to ask me things that I have no idea is coming. So, good Lord only knows, and maybe Sherry,
yes,
where the show is headed.
Yes,
so,
I'm in the power chair at the moment, which is so interesting. Well, okay, so I have two things, but one thing, just really quick, we talked earlier about 401k plans as an employer or an employee, what you look for. One of the things I had wanted to talk about was, what do you do if you're an employee and you don't feel like the administrator is really acting in your best interest and how they're managing your 401k. So you already talked about they can come to you if they have assets of over $100,000. Mm-hmm. But is that their only option? I mean, what would you suggest?
You can go to HR and you can say, listen, I want to become more proactive in this, but that doesn't always go very far. I mean, you're stuck with the choices. The best thing you can do if you're single, you're kind of stuck with what you've got.
Right.
But one of the biggest mistakes that I see people make financially is they think in a silo. Mm-hmm. Your 401k, his 401k, your brokerage account, your inherited IRA from Aunt Millie, and people tend to look at them all separate. We try to do our best to help people combine them and mentally, and then make the best choice. So. Sure. Your spouse may not be putting as much money into the 401k as they can so that you can put it into yours. I would reduce what's going into yours if it's a bad plan down to the match. Right. Always take free money. Mm-hmm. And then have the extra come out of your spouse's income going into their 401k plan that may or may not have the Roth option, may or may not have better investment choices.
Sure. Make a comparison. All right. Okay. So what I wanted to talk about was it's springtime, it's graduation time, it's, seasonal changing time. And we've talked before on this show about planning for your kids, your grandkids' college, the 529 plan, putting money away, all those things. But some of our listeners, I'm going to say, are going to, and I know actually I myself was in this position with my kids, mm-hmm. going to try to see if we had any financial aid eligibility at all. And so I found an article on Investopedia, which talked about 7 different assets and how they can affect your financial aid eligibility. Mm-hmm. I wanted to talk about that for just a minute because some of it I thought was interesting. I mean, I know a lot of times we just assume people aren't even going to fill out that FAFSA form. They're not going to try to.
No. If you're going to a college in the United States, you're pretty much forced to fill
it out.
I had to fill it out when Kinder went to IUPUI,
mm-hmm.
and now she's at Anderson University, and I kept asking the question, what happens if I just said no?
No, yeah.
And the answer is you can't.
Yeah, you have to fill it out.
And apparently, if you're going to a private school, which I thought AU was, you can get around it. But if you're going to any state school, they get the digits.
They're going to get the digits. Okay. So I used to work with the community foundation here locally, and we brought in an expert on FAFSA forms and how to fill things out. And one of the sessions that he always did was he made sure we understood the limit. This is off topic a bit, but it's the limit your kids can earn and not have it affect their financial aid ability. Do you ever discuss that with a family? Do you ever suggest that a child not work beyond? I forget what it is.
No.
It's
the conversations that I have with most people over their kids. Most people who have come to us, mm-hmm. and that's not the case of all of it. I've got some younger planners now.
Sure, yeah.
But the majority of people who come to me tend to be within a few years of retirement transition, mm-hmm. one way or the other. So for the most of them, their kids are already through school.
Yeah, they're talking.
And what they're talking about is taking care of grandkids, and you do that in a different fashion
Right.
than you do with kids. So it is true. The more income that they make, the more problematic that it can be.
Right.
But it's not a conversation that I get into a lot.
Okay. All right. Let's get to the assets. Retirement accounts.
Mm-hmm.
The value of a 401k and Roth, traditional IRAs, are not counted at all when determining your expected family contribution.
That's correct. And the interesting part of that is, remember, on a Roth contribution, not a conversion, you always have access to the capital.
Mm-hmm.
So if I put I'm 50 now, so I can put in $6,500 a year if I qualify to contribute to a Roth IRA, and I can turn around and pull that money out to help pay for Kinder's tuition if I so desired.
Right. Okay. Equity in your home. This amount is not counted as an asset on the FAFSA.
Not yet. It's not.
I think it will be.
You never know what all tax policy is social policy. And honestly, higher education is in such dire straits right now. Mitch Daniels has done a phenomenal job keeping tuition level for the last 6 years. That's not the case for other universities. I mean, Purdue is outstanding, as Mitch is a good overseer.
Right. Okay. I don't understand these initials. You'll have to tell me what they are. There are custodial accounts, UGMA and UTMA accounts.
Yeah, UGMA and UTMA, the Uniform Gift to Minors Act and Uniform Transfer to Minor Act. Those are accounts where you essentially say, hey, I'm going to give you money, but Sherry, at your age of majority, which could be 18 or 21, depending on which of those you used and what state you live in, the kid has total access to the cash. I am not a big fan.
Right.
People hadn't used those plans with the intention of their kids being able to use them for school, or something like that. Bottom line is, somebody can be 18, be a senior in high school. They have access to all the money. And if they want to go buy a hot rod, they want to go to Vegas, they want to do anything, it is their money, and you have no ability to restrict it.
Right. So this said 20% of a student's assets are counted in the EFC.
The worst money for a student to have is their own. The second worst is their parent. And then the one that doesn't count at all is the grandparent. So if the grandparent has created an account for them, right, with the intent to help them with stuff that they're doing,
right,
there is no impact at all. With the parent, that is not the case.
Okay, so
right?
grandparents step up.
Well, and they do.
Oh, I know.
We have such loving, caring. We're blessed to work with great people.
Sure. Family-owned businesses' values are not considered in FAFSA.
Not the value of it's not. The income most certainly is.
Right.
And if you happen to have what's called a C Corp, which is just a typical corporation, but it flows through to your 1040. The cash inside of those accounts can count because it's really your money, even though you may have left it in the company.
Right. Okay. Value of insurance policies and annuities. That looks a little complicated to me.
They're protected. It's one of the things, and it depends on the state that you're in. I mean, the Financial Enhancement Group's 20 this year, so we were going back 20 years and looking at things. So think OJ and the Ford Bronco.
Okay.
Right? Before he got in trouble the second time and went to prison, he went to Florida because in Florida, pensions and annuities are protected from creditors and bankruptcy and everything else.
Interesting.
Some states they are, some states they're not.
So
right? So the money that's inside of a life insurance policy is typically exempt from being counted on the FAFSA, but it's going to there is complications that are to that. And for the record, I am not a FAFSA expert.
Right.
I don't.
No. I know.
I hate the fact that people have to fill that form out.
Right. But what they do, like with mutual funds, those assets are counted in. And also, so you are an expert on 529 college savings plans, though. I mean, you do. So how does that affect any of this?
That's money that they have that's accessible to, if it's if they own it. Which is very difficult to do because they're not over 18 for the most part, or if their parent owns it, that counts as part of the money that they have to be able to use. They have right to the balance. Again, in a grandparent's name, that is not the case.
Okay, all right.
Because you can change the beneficiary. Now, remember on the 529s, and that's a key thing, you want to make sure that the beneficiary that you're giving the money to is the one that's in school.
Okay.
So don't forget, don't leave it in an older kid's name who's already graduated and try to take it out for a younger. The two do have to match up to keep everything safe and stable.
All right.
But college planning is critical. Where I help people set up grandparent trust for college education. I love that rules and that world. And the second is in using college choice with the state of Indiana because of the tax credit that is available. So great questions. If you've got a question or comment, you can shoot me an email. Consider this at yourlifeafterwork.com. I got to take a break. We'll be right back.
Welcome to Consider This with Big Joe Clark. Joe is a certified financial planner with more than 28 years of experience in the financial services industry. He serves as the managing partner of the Financial Enhancement Group, LLC, and also taught financial planning at Purdue University for 7 years. The Financial Enhancement Group is an SEC-registered investment advisory firm based in Indiana with more than $200 million in assets, serving clients in more than 20 states. Indiana offices are located in Anderson, Fishers, Lafayette, and Rensselaer, as well as Sonoma County, California. This show is for educational purposes, and you're strongly encouraged to consult your advisor regarding your individual issues and opportunities. Joe can be reached at 800-928-4001. You can find more information about Joe and the Financial Enhancement Group at yourlifeafterwork.com. Enjoy the show, and remember to consider this.
Well, good morning and welcome back to Consider This. I'm Joe Clark.
I'm Sherry Cantos.
Folks, this is the fastest hour in radio.
Always flies.
I appreciate you guys joining us, whether it be for an individual segment or whether it be for the whole show. Remember, you always have the capacity to go back and listen to anything that you missed. You can go to our website at yourlifeafterwork.com. There's a tab called FEG Insights, and you can go right there. You can actually have the radio show sent to you every week if you want to.
That's a nice idea.
You can go to iTunes and get it under Consider This with Big Joe Clark. Lots of different ways to be able to get the show. But sometimes people need to go back or want to go back and review something that they heard. If you've got a question or comment, I mean, we're big on education as well as application. If you've got a question or comment, just shoot us an email. Consider this at yourlifeafterwork.com. We'll help you find what you're looking for if you need it. We take care of people who do not want to worry about their money. And that does not mean that you don't want your money cared for.
Right.
It just means you want somebody else to take care of it as a fiduciary, to give it oversight, to give it guidance. We only get one shot at retirement. I understand that. And you can either do that on your own, or you can do that with the help of somebody who sells stuff, or you can do that with the help of a fiduciary. And it's at the end of the day, guys, it's your choice. I get data put in front of me all of the time that somebody was trying to sell something and used facts. And the bottom line is, statistics can be misleading. There's a book on a shelf behind me. It's called Lies, Darned Lies, except that's a cleaned up version, and Statistics. And numbers can get people into trouble. And so there are a lot of salespeople that say, hey, if you miss the 10 best days of the market, your return really goes down. And it's true. It's true on an annual basis. But that doesn't mean you need to stick it out and hold out, because what they fail to tell you is if you were out of the market the 10 worst days, how much money that actually saves you. And they usually, by the way, the best and the worst are usually clustered together, much closer than many, many people think. That's why you should never be all the way in or all of the way out. It doesn't mean you don't need a disciplined process. That's what we provide at the Financial Enhancement Group. But you should never be all of one thing or another. It is very, very dangerous, very, very problematic. And history says it just doesn't work out. My friends, have an outstanding Mother's Day. Have a great weekend with your family. Please enjoy it. You get a question or comment, shoot us an email. Consider this at yourlifeafterwork.com. Have an outstanding week, and one more time, happy Mother's Day.
Thanks for listening to Consider This with Big Joe Clark. Joe can be reached at 800-928-4001 or via email at bigjoe@yourlifeafterwork.com. The Financial Enhancement Group, LLC, is based at 429 East 14th Street, Anderson, Indiana, 46016. Be sure to check out their website for more information at yourlifeafterwork.com. Have a